In today's tutorial, we're going to talk about how I made this project using SketchUp and Thea Render. This is the model, this is the scene we have in SketchUp, and I'm going to orbit a little bit. So it's just a basic, simple room with a 2D image on the outside that serves as a background. So not too complicated. Some things that I like to do if I have the time is to bevel every edge. So you see here with the walls, let me just isolate this. So everything is beveled. I think I used Fredo's bevel tool, this one, because it gives like really good results. So I want everything, well, not everything, not all the time, but if I have the time, I will bevel the walls because I like how the light bounces off this little curvature here. And of course, as a rule of thumb, I would bevel almost anything for the final render. It just gives it a little bit of detail that makes it look more realistic. And I think this is it. I mean, it's not anything special. I didn't use any extra lights. We'll talk about these things in a second, what I wanted to achieve and I couldn't. And then I used these lights. But first, these are my models. So I just put a little sofa in the foreground and I wanted to do sort of a composition like this, where the armchair is around here. This is the hero of the shot, so this is the most important part of the image. And, you know, have some curtains, have the sun coming through. Let me just go quickly through the settings. Again, nothing special. I didn't use any special lighting tricks. Well, I use the Thea projector, so this is something interesting that I'll show you, which is different. But it doesn't affect the overall lighting of the scene. So for the environment, there's the sun coming through with more power than usual because I wanted to generate some caustics. And, well, it didn't work, but let's just leave the power of the sun just at 5 and some shadow softness. The exposure and the rest is just a white color on the sky. So just a white color with intensity set to 5. So we have the sun coming through, a stronger sun to give me some more light inside of the room, and a white sky dome with a multiplier of 5. The tone mapping is filmic, and then I adjust the highlights from here. Now it's 65. Sometimes I go down to even like 30 or lower depending on the scene. Shadows is set to 5 because in post-processing I noticed that adding LUTs and filters and stuff like that just darkens the shadow. So I like to have lighter shadows out of the render. And then super sampling, I set it to none because honestly just gives me faster results. And I set the samples to 1500, and then if you have more detailed images and complicated light calculations, then maybe auto or even high. So if you want to achieve maybe sharper caustics in your scene, then I would suggest using high super sampling. But if you want faster renders, you just have to use the denoiser when you set the super sampling to none. I found the Intel denoiser works better for animations. just a thought. So use denoiser when super sampling is none. And then I wanted to generate some caustics, but it didn't work, and I faked them with these projector lights, and I'll show you when we start the render. And that's it. I'm rendering on my laptop, so I have an external GPU connected, and I use that for rendering. The ISO is set to 200 to have better lighting, and that's it. So nothing very, very complicated. Let's just start Thea to see what we have so far. So this is the render that we have so far. And as you can see, I wanted these sun rays to come in strong into the room. So I set the intensity to 5. Let's talk a little bit about the materials. So one thing that I like to do with the floor, so we have this texture that's a little bit damaged and it has some imperfections that I really like. One thing that I like to do is the materials are pretty straightforward, so just some reflection, some bump, and maybe some displacement sometimes, and that's it. But for the floor, for the wooden floor, because let's say it's been lacquered and it's been worn, so it has a certain, let's say, patina to it or damage. And for the diffuse, it's just the image in this case, and there's a reflectance map, and in the roughness map I combine the roughness texture with a Fresnel ramp, and I set it to instead of multiply, I add it to the mix. And this Fresnel ramp helps me with something, which is that whenever I look at the floor with the camera like closer to the ground like this, the floor is more reflective. This is what Fresnel basically means. So if you look at even the wall in your house or whatever, you'll see that if you get closer to the wall, you'll see some reflection, and the further you go away from it, then the reflection goes away. So this is the effect that I get by using the Fresnel ramp in the roughness map, adding it to the roughness texture. So if I'm here closer to the ground, you'll see the reflection of the window is fairly visible. But of course, the normal map and the reflectance map that has a texture there makes it more a little bit more blurry, but you can see it right here. And then if I go further away from it, or I look perpendicular to the texture, then there's less reflection in it. So this is something that I like to do with certain materials that behave this way. If I go further down, there's more of a reflection in the material. It's basically what happens in real life, so that's an easy way to make that work. Another interesting material would be the armchair material, which is this type of fabric. I think it's called boucle fabric. But anyway, the usual way to get this effect, let me just turn on displacement. The usual way to get this effect is with displacement. But I also animated this scene, and displacement uses a lot of resources, and I could just move this project to my workstation and render it there. It's no problem, but I keep using my laptop more often, and I want to save some resources. So initially, as you've seen here, there's a displacement map added, and then it looks like this. You see it's already working a little bit slower, but you can see the texture it's generating with the displacement map. But again, you have to be careful with the subdivisions, and it's just slower. So I wanted to get this effect of the material, but without displacement. And with just simple normal maps or bump maps, you get some texture here, some detail, but of course it's not enough. One thing that I did for this material, I used some layers in the diffuse channel where I blended the texture with a color. So I don't want this hard contrast on the texture. I want it to make it more neutral, let's say, more beige. So this is how it looks. I just blended the two. And I wanted to show you how to do this material using fur, which is a new addition to Thea Render. So usually what I like to do with fur is add like fuzziness, little strands to make it look more real. But in this case, I want to mimic this texture, this boucle texture, and I'll just select an object here, and we'll go to object settings. And then here where we had beveling and edge ramp, now we have fur. And if I just turn on the fur, we will have these little strands that you can see there. And you can adjust the length, the thickness, the fuzziness. Let's do 50% fuzziness. And then, you know, you can make them thinner, longer, thicker, and so on. So this is what we're gonna use to try to get a better result and a faster result than with the displacement map. So in this case, let's go the fuzziness to 0. The thickness is the thing we're going to modify. So the length, we're going to keep it at 0.5. And the thickness will go 2. And it's already looking pretty good. So with the thickness of 2, I'll just go a little bit closer. Now if I go really close, of course, it's not going to look good. The edges will be a little bit like jagged. But let's do fuzziness 50% to move them around a bit. Like that. But I'm not doing a close-up of this armchair. So if I'm around here somewhere, maybe 50 centimeters away from the model, it looks pretty good. I get the effect that I'm looking for. The boucle, the fabric I want to mimic, and it looks better than the normal map or the bump map, and it's faster than the displacement map. So it's somewhere in between. If you want really accurate results or precise results, then maybe displacement map in combination with the fur, but it would take longer. So considering I'm not doing a close-up on this material, I'm just showing the room and maybe coming in like maybe this close to the chair. It looks good with just the fur applied to it. And you can see this sort of popcorn texture. So I can just turn on the fur for all the other pieces of the armchair. Let's do a 50% fuzziness too. So like that. And you can see already the shadows that it creates here and on the armrest and the back of the armchair. I think we could do even a close-up. Like from this distance, it looks pretty good. Maybe some AI enhancement and it will make them a little bit softer. But it looks really good. It works faster than the displacement. And because it works faster, I can animate it and render out the frames a little bit faster. And I like the effect. I really like the effect from a medium distance from the object. Now, if I go back to these lights that I said, I'm going to talk later about them. What I wanted to do is have like a metal sill outside, and the sun being so powerful, it would hit it and it would create some ceiling caustics. Now, I know what you're thinking. What are those ceiling caustics? So where I live, there's the whole apartment is facing south, so there's a lot of sun, and sometimes I get these caustics on the ceiling from things outside, windows outside, or even the metal sill. I hope I'm saying that right. Sill. I think that's the word for it. But anyway. If I leave a plate on the sill or a glass of water or something, the sun hits it and then I get these really cool caustics on the ceiling. So I tried to get that through Thea Render, through Presto, which has caustics, but they didn't show up. So I really wanted to get that effect. That's on the ceiling there. And I did it with projector lights. So I used a texture map that I made, which is this one. And then I played around with different models. And you get something similar to this, right? So that's what I wanted to get. I used the boucle material on the sofa there too, and maybe they're too strong, but I just wanted to test it out to see how it looks, and I like it. I like the effect. I sometimes add LUTs, lookup tables, or filters, let's call them, straight from Thea Render. So from here in the display settings, you can add your LUTs, or Thea even comes with some LUTs. The one that could be interesting to use is the false color, and the false color basically shows you the image like this, and it tells you which parts are overexposed or underexposed. So the darker the color, darker the blue, means you have less light information over there, and the brighter, or the red parts of the image are overexposed. So sometimes you can check this with the false color LUT, but I usually add like different LUTs to see how the image changes. And oh, this looks good. And then you can blend it maybe 50% with the render. But this looks really good. And then you can move around with the added effect, so you can see the final result of your render, and there would be no need for post-processing after this. And adding LUTs, you'll see in this case the highlights are a little bit blown. So if we go to highlights over here, then we could start doing maybe 50 or 45%. And we have this very sunny day with the sun coming in, a nice image. And then I'm looking now at the curtains. Another thing you can do in Thea is while you are in the interactive mode or interactive render, you can disable the interactive production rendering from here. It will keep rendering, but then you can move through the scene. Maybe you want to move stuff around, and then it will show up here, but it won't change the camera angle. The camera angle, let's say this is the final rendering angle that I want to use, so I can just keep moving stuff around in interactive mode. So let me see. For the fabric, it's just subsurface material, no texture to it. So it gives you this very clean effect. The translucency over there. And that's it. Maybe we could add some depth of field. If we go to our final scene, let me just turn this on and off. So this would be the final scene with the LUT applied, and we could go to camera settings and F number. We could use 2.8, and focal distance would be, let's say, the pillow. And then we can see the effect of the depth of field. 2.8 is very shallow, so we could go with something bigger, 3.6, and we still have a nice depth of field here in the foreground. So we can play with that. And, you know, I see now the chair is kind of blurry too. So we want maybe a bigger F number. Let's do 5.6. And with this one, I'm trying to get some blurriness or out of focus objects in the foreground, but I want everything in the main ground to be sharp, and then the background should be blurry as well. But this looks good. This looks better. 5.6, although I like it better. Let's just do 4. I like it better when it's a little bit shallower, so there's more of this photographic look. And this is the final result using this technique. In this case, the material was done just with displacement because fur wasn't available when I rendered this, but I will do some new renders with fur and compare. So I use the LUT to see the exposure, and then this would be the final shot. Clay render looks pretty good. Depth of field is just out of focus enough, which I like. I hope you found this information useful. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.